Well, accuracy is a relative term. As we went in the field, we used to go out in the field, and if we were within, say, 90 meters, that was accurate enough for us. Now, as we go out in the field with these, we're looking at 3 to 15 meters as being a reasonable accuracy for doing a lot of what we do, which is natural resource mapping. But obviously, if you're doing things like surveying, boundary issues and things along those lines, then you need a higher accuracy units, and those are available. You can go right down to accuracy, certainly sub-meter and centimeter accuracy. So they're doing that now with much higher precision units. They cost a little bit more than the $200 units we have.
Do you know what the accuracy is of the GPS units that are in cars?
No, I mean they would vary as well. So they have an advantage, those units in the cars, because they can snap your location
to a road.
Yeah. So they map the road, and then they know the direction you're traveling, so you must be on this side of the road, and they can snap you to the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they kind of cheat a little bit. Same satellites and technology. As a matter of fact, the satellites were put up there not for commercial use, but for military use, of course. And then they made them available. The signals became available to commercial use and private recreational use and things like that now. So, and there's many several more constellations going up. So it's going to continue to be a big source of data. Plus, they're also now on all our cell phones, as you know. So that's what the 911, when you hit 911 and all the lights go off on your cell phone, it's the GPS chip that's in the cell phone that gives the location back to 911.
Location, right?
I think one of the roles is to help make sure that the mapping and the locational information that's being presented is done properly, and that there aren't errors or obvious mistakes being made in presenting your data and projecting your data and displaying and things like that, making sure that we all sort of have that the data is being presented in a proper fashion. So I guess that's along the lines of what I think as far as the geographic data goes.
Giving people the opportunity to learn how to visualize the landscape or think spatially, I think, is an important role of teaching geospatial sciences. You can get a perspective of a problem on the landscape from a map that you couldn't standing in a single point on the ground. And then once you bring the power of computer analysis to mapping, then you can begin to formulate answers to some of the issues that face us that are land-based.
Right. Well, people should care about the geography and their environment and how they relate to the environment and how all these things are interrelated, because they are interrelated, and everything impacts everything else. And even though you may or may not be aware of the fact that a development near your area or some sort of mining operation or whatever is going to impact you, it will. And this is one of the things that came out in a project a long time ago that we were doing, was a project called LEAP, and it involved watershed education. And in that, we were quite amazed to find out how many people did not understand what a watershed was, and the fact that they were part of a watershed. No matter where on the earth they were involved in a watershed, and the things that happened and occurred in that watershed impacted them. And so that was quite a kind of an eye-opener for me to find out that there were people out there that didn't understand these very simple, basic things that we deal with. So,
and yet the seeds to caring are already there. Because whenever we do a workshop or bring maps or air photos to an audience, the first thing they want to do is find their house, because it matters to them. And you put your house or your community in the context of the larger environment, and you see what your relationships are to the features around you. So the seeds of caring are there. And then we capitalize on that and bring more information to bear to problem solving.
Well, partly it might just be because people are so involved in their own lives, in making money and raising kids and things like that. They don't have a chance to really involve themselves in their surroundings. I mean, you go out and you take care of your house, you mow your lawn, you do things like that. You don't necessarily start looking at the field next door or in the neighborhood next adjacent to you. So.
Well, that's a good point. We did a workshop in New York City, and we were working with some landscape maps, and one of the teachers said, I can't find myself. Now, we were looking at, we had shoreline as a focus. She said, I can't find myself because where are the subways? And so it was a matter of recognizing that people orient themselves to their daily activities and don't always step back to take a look at the bigger picture of what's happening in the larger community.
Of course, the other program that I was talking about was also dealing with adults. And so we didn't have quite the perspective on the world that the younger generation does have, which is now, what, 2 or 3 generations. I mean, you know, it was quite a while before we saw the Earth from satellite.
That's right.
And they've grown up seeing the Earth from satellite, so they have quite a different perspective of the world than we did. Sure, we all, I mean, even in junior high and elementary school, we used to make maps. So we were creating data sets. They might have been very simple data sets, but we were creating data sets. And now, in the schools, they're offering a lot of mapping programs. There's a lot of free mapping programs and things like that that allow students to bring data in that they're collecting out in the schoolyard or wherever, bring it in and do their own mapping and build their own data sets. And there's no reason that those data sets cannot be used for many different things over time. So.
It's like learning a new language. You're looking.
I wasn't good at languages. Try another one.
Well, when we're teaching air photo interpretation, it's like when you want to learn how to read what's on the photograph, then you need to learn the alphabet of what the colors mean and what the shapes mean. And you put that alphabet together to make words and sentences, and by the time you know it, you're saying, well, this is green and it's kind of bumpy, that must be a forest. Or this is green and it's smooth, maybe it's a lawn. And so we can teach. And yes, anyone can learn how to do those.